Our message basically is that government is too big, and government's role should be different than the role it's performing today. It should be much closer to what was intended by the founders of the country, and it should conform with the Constitution. The role of government ought to be for the protection of liberty, not for the intrusion in our private lives, not for the intrusion in economic affairs, and not to intrude in the internal affairs of other nations. Both of the other parties, both the Republicans and Democrats, have accepted a different role for government, quite contrary to what was intended by the Constitution.
You can't have a government like this without an income tax, but we don't want a government like this. This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution. We've only had an income tax since 1913. If you want a welfare state, and if you want to police the world and pay for the defense of Japan and Germany, send foreign aid to the Soviet Union, you not only need the income tax, you need the Federal Reserve to print up the money when the deficit is accumulated. So we think the government should be much smaller.
If you think we can continue to police the world and spend hundreds of billions of dollars overseas and spend hundreds of billions of dollars running a welfare state, an entitlement system that has accumulated $60 trillion worth of obligations, and think that we can run the economy this way, we spend so much money now that we have to borrow nearly $3 billion a day from foreigners to take care of our consumption. And we can't afford that. We can't afford it in the government. We can't afford it as a nation. So tax reform should come, but spending cuts have to come by changing our attitude of what government ought to be doing for us.
A mess that's getting messier, and reason enough for Texas Republican Ron Paul to say the U.S. should stop getting in deeper and cut all financial aid to Egypt now. Congressman joins me on the phone. Well, that would be a big move, Congressman.
Well, it would, but I'd include everybody, because I think we just get ourselves into too much trouble. This is a typical example of what happens when we run an interventions-type foreign policy. We get in the middle of these fights. But we've been in the middle of this for 30 years over there. We've given Mubarak $60 billion, you know, and so we're responsible for a lot of the mess that's over there.
So I want to ask you, could you win nationally? Again, do your views have a majority of support in the United States of America that would allow you to get elected president? If you were the Republican nominee, could you beat Barack Obama?
Yeah. The reality is it would be very, very difficult, but I think the difficulty is more in getting Republicans to believe in small government. But if you look at the polls, and there aren't that many, my appeal is to a lot of independents and a lot of progressive Democrats who are sick and tired of Obama for, you know, opting out of cutting back on some of this militarism. He's a warmonger. He's expanding the war. So my support comes much broader. So my numbers would be much bigger running against Obama than they will be running against some conservative in the Republican primary. But the big thing is the numbers are growing. Even though I'm a pessimist on the short run, in the long run I'm optimistic, because there's a new generation coming, and they say this is an idea whose time has come. We need to be talking about what liberty really can offer to us in the foreign policy arena, in personal liberties, and then also, which conservatives all agree with, on the economic policies. So no, I think on a broad base, and when you look at the entire population, my numbers are much better.
Most important is the fact that other than your son Rand Paul and Paul Ryan on good days and a few others, nobody in Washington is yet talking seriously about cutting spending, about Pentagon spending, entitlement spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Congressman, what's it going to take for Washington to get serious?